Ladies and Gentiles, my name is Miles and welcome back to the top Reddit petty revenge stories of all time, episode 1. Let's get into it. So, wanna snoop in your daughter's texts? So I'm married to a wonderful woman. She's smart, funny, and very kind. Her mother is generally very nice and tends to have a great attitude and be very enjoyable. A bit of a prude, but generally enjoyable. However, can be a bit of a major snoop. If my wife leaves her phone sitting around, she will just pick it up and start going through it. My wife has kinda laughed this off as a remnant of her mom being controlling when she was a kid. I'm not a fan of this because my wife and I will sometimes text about things that simply don't involve her mother, and I don't feel are her business at all. So, over Christmas, saw my wife set her phone down on the kitchen counter and I had a brilliant idea. Her mom was still in the kitchen and I sent my wife the most sexually depraved text about all the things I was gonna do to her when everyone left. Honestly, most of them are things we haven't even done, but I had to make it extra scarring. Gotta go for that extra spice. I sent this text from the bathroom and maybe it was my imagination, but I could swear I heard an audible gasp shortly after her phone went off. When I went out, her mother absolutely would not look me in the eye, then not so discreetly asked her daughter to come to talk to her in the other room. When my wife came back into the living room, I thought she had been crying. However, upon closer inspection, she was laughing. Her mother had questioned her about me sexually abusing her and if I always talked down to her like that. My wife had told her kindly that what we do is between us and us alone. Probably the best gift this Christmas. Take my parking spot that I just dug out? Fine, I'll bury your car. This happened a couple of years ago. It had snowed a bunch and so I went out to clear a spot for my boyfriend at the time for when he got home from work. He's a police officer. I spent a while digging it out and as I was finishing up, some girl drove up and parked in it while I was still shoveling it. I told her that I just dug it out and intended to use it and asked her to move, and she didn't. She then got out of her car and walked away. Turns out she lived 2 buildings down, so she normally wouldn't park there anyways. Our complex had a mini snowplow, and the dude was plowing in the area and saw this all go down. He helped me move all the snow from the pile he had just created and put it all around her car. We buried it up to the door handles on all sides. He then dug out a new spot for me. Personally, I would have just covered the car, but that's just me. Saw her later trying to dig out her car. Turns out she didn't have a shovel, so naturally, because I'm petty, I went out and reshoveled the sidewalk from the lot up to our building and threw all the snow on her vehicle while I did it. Then went inside and took my shovel with me. Shitty server demands a better tip. A couple of months back, my boyfriend and I went out for drinks one night at this cool little speakeasy in Montreal. It's actually quite an interesting place. You come in through a nondescript entrance and the place has a really nice vibe going on once you get inside. No, this is one of those bars where the server comes to your table and serves the drinks rather than the one where you order at the bar and take your drinks back yourself. We were seated around our table by our server. We ordered a couple of cocktails and then a couple more, and then a couple more after that. Each time we had to order, my boyfriend or I would have to go fetch the server, so he would take our order or go up to the bar order, then bring the drinks back ourselves. Then, when it came time for the bill, I went up again so he would come to our table. He came and thought we were going to order again, despite me clearly asking for the bill when I went up. So he went back to get the card machine and it was another 10 minutes before he was back. At this point, I was quite ticked off at the not so great service and was debating whether or not I should tip him. The screen had an option for 10, 15 or 20% or other. I just decided to leave 10% as I wanted to avoid an argument with the server. Montreal service employees are pretty damn notorious when it comes to expectation of tips. Now he prints out the receipt and takes a look at it and sees I left 10%. He then asks if we had a nice evening, to which my boyfriend responded that we did. We both thought it was just a standard question servants ask, so we didn't bother telling the guy about the poor service received, especially because it wouldn't really make a difference at this point. The guy then says, "Oh, well, if you had such a nice time, you should have left at least a 15% tip." Because in Canada, it's customary to leave a minimum of 15% when the service is good. I'm guessing the reason he felt that he needed to outline that is how it is in Canada is because I'm a brown guy. Now comes the petty part. I responded, "Oh, I didn't know. Why don't you cancel this bill and redo it so I can tip you properly?" He said, "Sure thing. Just give me a second because the manager has to approve bill cancellations." Again, we waited a good 10 minutes for him to come back with the new bill. I was happy to wait though, because once he came back I put in the PIN and then selected the other option for the tip and left him 0%. He printed out the receipt and his look was disbelief was well worth it. We got up and my white Canadian boyfriend said, "Our only tip for you is to give better service and not be so much of an arsehole. In Canada, we don't like arseholes." You can't just cut people out of your life. Me. Personally, I'd have bigger scissors. My 7th grade English teacher hated me, but I made her think she was crazy for 2 weeks. So, in 7th grade, I missed a lot of school due to medical and mental issues. That being said, all of my teachers were understanding, except one. I'm not gonna lie, I don't actually remember her real name, so we'll call her Miss Bitter, my 7th grade English teacher. I'm sure most of you remember or are still having to do accelerated reading or AR. If not, basically the school gave all students a test to see what reading level they were on, what book range they can read and how many points one would need to pass in English. They would tell you to check out books and each book had a point system on it. This was the amount of points you receive after finishing the book and then taking a 10-question quiz to make sure you read it. I always scored 12+, so I could read anything I wanted. Not the point, okay? Well, every English class was required to allow students 30 minutes to read their AR books. They had to be AR books specifically. If it had no points, you couldn't read it during the time block. They were also required to take the class to the library once a week to check out new books or take quizzes. Being sick and absent so much, I didn't get to go to the library often, so I was always having to go to the library before or after school to do my shit. I didn't have the best home life, so it was hard for me to go early or stay later. Well, many times I went to class I either didn't have a book or I had a book but it wasn't an AR book. Miss Bitter would go around and check every damn book every day to make sure we were doing what we were supposed to do. If we didn't have it, she'd give you a warning. 3 warnings and you got a detention. Needless to say, this happened to me. I was furious because Miss Bitter literally had a bookshelf full of AR books in her class that no one was allowed to read if we forgot our book or didn't have it because reasons like me. Miss Bitter chastised me in front of the class and even scolded me for being absent too much. She made me cry more than once. After months of this, I decided to be petty because I was sick of her picking on me. At this point, she basically just expected me to not have my approved book. So I went into her room one morning while she wasn't there and wrote down about 5 to 10 AR books on her personal bookshelf that she wouldn't let us use. Still not sure why. Then I hid them behind all the other books. After that, I went to the library during that precious lunch hour period to start my revenge. I checked out about 4 or 5 copies of the books on that shelf. I couldn't check out any more than that. Next day, I come in and we get to the point of silent reading. And here we go. I pull out one of the books I had duplicated and began to read. Miss Bitter's making her rounds to check the books. I was sitting there hoping so bad that she would do what I thought she'd do. She gets to me. I don't look at her. And I can see in my peripheral vision she is looking very hard at my book. Silently, I observed her walk directly over to the bookshelf and begin to look for what I assume was the book she thought I took so I wouldn't get in trouble again. I could see the anger in her face. She couldn't find it. Miss Bitter walks over to me with her everlasting need to torture and embarrass me. She grabs my book pretty forcibly and starts accusing me of taking a book without permission and that I would be getting another warning and detention for stealing from her. I just sat there calmly letting her finish. Then I said, "Miss Bitter, that book is from the library, not your bookshelf." She disagrees again and starts to head to her desk for a write-up. I turn and say, "Would you please look on the inside? It clearly shows where it belongs to the library with the checklist and everything. Has my name right on it." She did, thinking she would get me for lying too. Well, I saw her face get bright red and slowly comes back to give it me. She didn't apologize for anything. In fact, I think I made her hate me more. I was vindicated, but this wasn't enough for me. Day after day, I'd bring another duplicate book, and each time she would stomp over, not finding her copy, looking at me with 7 hell's fury. Each time I'd show her the library stamp when she'd approach to accuse me again. This went on for about 2 weeks. I honestly think I made her feel crazy and so irritated that she couldn't pin anything on me. I also came in again one day in the morning and put all her books back in place as if they were there all along. I got my AR points by just reading the duplicate books and passed with an A. I still don't know why she hated me so much, but for about 2 weeks, I enjoyed watching her crumble every day, not being able to punish me for shit. Not the most elaborate petty revenges, but I loved it. Thank you for joining me on this Reddit adventure. If you enjoyed this video, why not consider massaging that subscribe button and then softly caressing that notification bell for more daily content. Share it with a friend, enjoy yourself, and I will see you in the next video. But until then, Miles out.